the end of the 19th century. The Franco-Prussian War is over. So is the last Russo-Turkish War. The Third Republic has taken hold over France. The Victorian era is slowly grinding to a close in Great Britain. Europe is entering the Belle Epoque. 5 of the most peaceful, productive, and light-hearted decades in European history. After the Russo-Turkish War of 1877 to 1878, new states appeared on the map of the old continent. States that had not been in existence for centuries: Greece, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria. All lay on the road linking Europe to Asia. The western Black Sea littoral was the cradle of the oldest known civilization, the Varna culture. 6,000 years before Christ, 2,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids were constructed, people here built cities of stone and worked gold. The civilization disappeared due to a cataclysmic natural event: the transformation of the freshwater lake that was the Black Sea into a salty expanse that became part of the world ocean. Most likely, this event was the biblical deluge. The Varna culture left a rich legacy. It was the basis upon which an amazing ancient civilization of the Thracians sprang up. The Thracians were contemporaries of the ancient Greeks, and through their military prowess and artistic achievement became their main competitors. Then the Roman legions arrived and turned Thrace into a province. It would be centuries before the region regained its importance. It was the 1,000-year domination of the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as Byzantium, that put the Balkans back on the map. It was the longest stretch of time under single rule that the region experienced in its recorded history. The present-day capital of Bulgaria, Sofia, became one of the most important spiritual centers of the known world. It was known as Serdica at the time, and it was here that Christianity began its long and victorious march. Until Emperor Galerius issued his edict, Christians were persecuted mercilessly for 3 centuries. After the act of the dying emperor, Christianity went on to become a global religion. The star of Constantine the Great rose quickly. Serdica, which under his rule became the political capital of the empire, briefly assumed the role of a world spiritual center too. The oldest functioning church in Europe is to be found here, the St. George Rotunda, built more than 1,700 years ago. 3 centuries after the reign of Constantine the Great, in the year 681 AD, the First Bulgarian Empire was founded. For a couple of hundred years, Europe knew only 3 states: Byzantium, the Frankish Empire of Charlemagne, and the Bulgarian Empire. In 1018, after centuries of military conquest and growth, the First Bulgarian Empire fell under Byzantine rule. Incidentally, Byzantium is the first empire that made Christianity state religion and introduced the concept of human rights. It was here that citizens first acquired the right to stand up to the state and even sue it in court. Despite decades of foreign rule, Bulgarian identity survived thanks to this imperial tolerance. Bulgarian statehood revived in the last quarter of the 12th century. The capital was moved to Veliko Tarnovo. The new state was a feudal empire that sought legitimacy in historical continuity with its predecessor. It lasted 211 years and maintained the old tradition of cooperating and competing with Byzantium. Dynastic marriages between the 2 royal courts were the norm. In the end, both powers collapsed under the onslaught of the powerful Ottoman state. Byzantium disappeared forever. While Bulgaria rose like a phoenix from the ashes 5 centuries later. The Third Bulgarian Kingdom continued the tradition of Bulgarian statehood. At the end of the 19th century, millions in Europe looked upon the birth of a new world order with hope and enthusiasm. Little did they know that shortly the old continent would descend into the quagmire of the bloodiest and most dramatic era of human history. Europe was doomed to conflict, but the cards had not yet been dealt. The aristocracy that had ruled Europe since time immemorial was also about to undergo tremendous transformation. Europe was still governed mostly by monarchies, the most popular form of rule in the civilized world at that time. Royalty were bound by blood, kept close formal and informal contacts. Warred, fell in love, argued between themselves. European states were subject to parallel rule, on one level by their governments, on another by a supranational monarchical brethren. In a sense, this was the archetype of the European Union, except the influence of the monarch over the conduct of politics was far greater than that of institutions. Their every decision was imbued with a sense of drama, bore the air of tragic finality. Despite 5 centuries of Ottoman rule, Bulgaria had kept its sense of national identity at the close of the 19th century. Bulgarians spoke their language, wrote in their alphabet, which had even been adopted by the mighty Northern Empire of Russia. Bulgarians were Orthodox Christians of the Byzantine Rite, the original form of Christianity back when it became a world religion. Believers treasured the memory of the heroes who had lost their lives in countless uprisings against the conqueror. They had lost the glory of their fortresses and palaces, the liturgical processions out of splendid churches, the sight of royal weddings and processions. Bulgarians had lost half a millennium of historical development, their ancestral aristocracy, their kings and natural leaders. Then came liberation. The great powers decreed that founding assembly of the Principality of Bulgaria was to take place on the 10th of February 1879 in Veliko Tarnovo, the old capital of the Lost Kingdom. The rebirth of the Bulgarian state began here. After 500 years without autonomous statehood, Bulgarians elected a national assembly modelled on those of the developed European democracies. The choice of capital was not accidental. Medieval Veliko Tarnovo was renowned as an impregnable fortress with its high walls perched above precipitous rocks overlooking a fast-flowing river. Several European aristocrats vied for the throne of the new principality. The future Romanian King Carol, the son of the Danish King Christian IX, Waldemir, who later acquired the moniker uncle to European royalty, and a number of others. European powers competed mercilessly for spheres of influence in a continent that was being redrawn. No tactic was beneath them. Intrigue, open threats, and saber-rattling were all part of the game. Russia was victorious in Bulgaria. Bulgarians were pleased to welcome their first prince, who was chosen unanimously. Soon the press around the world would call him Europe's favorite child. He was young, intelligent, and charismatic. He was also closely related to the royal families of Russia, Great Britain, and Germany. His ambition was to lead Bulgaria to the forefront of European nations. The building where he was due to take up his constitutional obligations was only recently adapted to serve as a princely palace. It was a symbol of Sofia's new status as the capital of an independent state. The palace was remodeled twice under two different rulers. Gradually, the new state gained in strength, and her young ruler grew more confident. Parliament and the government worked on the basic legal framework of the new Bulgaria, tracing the path to the country's modern development. A construction boom necessitated the setting up of building societies controlled by their shareholders. Large cities such as Sofia, Plovdiv and Varna grew out of this form of voluntary association. The prince was adamant that the country needed more glamour. In 1880, he came up with the idea of transforming the Black Sea port city of Varna into the summer capital of the principality. Battenberg came to town to lay the foundation stone of the new cathedral. The building was completed under the next suzerain, Ferdinand. He was the grandson of the last French king, Louis Philippe. In the meantime, Prince Battenberg conducted a daring maneuver in the face of much European opposition: the unification of the Principality of Bulgaria with the Ottoman province of Eastern Rumelia, an integral part of historic Bulgaria that was denied independence by the 1879 Treaty of Berlin. The gamble turned out to be a resounding success, but it cost the young ruler his crown. His mighty cousin, the Emperor of Russia, Alexander III, became his sworn enemy and flew into fits of rage at the mere mention of Battenberg's name. To Battenberg's aunt, the Queen of Great Britain, Victoria, however, the young prince was an unjustly persecuted knight in shining armor. Eastern Rumelia came to symbolize the mess great power relations had become. It was created in order to counter Russian influence on the Balkans. However, counterintuitively, Russia was vehemently against unification, while Britain supported it. Germany, too, was against. In his quest to preserve the European concert of powers that he himself conducted, German Chancellor Bismarck opposed Bulgarian reunification. He even opposed the engagement between Battenberg and Victoria of Prussia, granddaughter of Queen Victoria and daughter of future German Kaiser William II. The next prince and subsequent king of Bulgaria was Ferdinand Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, a scion of the House of Wettin, founded by the warlike Frederick I. At the end of the 19th century, the house regained its prominence thanks to the Duchy of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. Its rise began with the choice of Leopold to be King of Belgians. He married off his sister Victoria von Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld to the Duke of Kent. Out of this union was born Victoria, the future Queen of Britain and Empress of India. Prince Ferdinand came into this world in the famous palace of Asparagus. Ferdinand called himself a French prince and addressed Queen Victoria as Auntie. Bulgaria was a fully functioning state at the time of Prince Battenberg's abdication, but its integration into Europe was yet to occur. Bulgarians were starting to adopt European manners soon after they rid themselves of the Ottomans. In the space of a few years, the capital Sofia acquired a wholly European look, a royal palace surrounded by extensive parkland. Spacious boulevards and city streets, modern public and private buildings, electric trams, street lighting, and a telephone network. City parks designed by famous European gardeners and planted with rare species of local and exotic flora. The royal parks in Sofia, Euxinograd, Varna, and Zartska Bistritsa were rather splendid. Prince Ferdinand took it upon himself to modernize the Black Sea coast. He hired the famous Czech park designer Anton Novak, who had perfected his craft in the garden of the Viennese palaces of Schönbrunn and Belvedere. Thanks to his skills, the seaside gardens of Varna seamlessly flows into the grounds of the Euxinograd Palace. In order to fortify his position, young Ferdinand had to find a suitable consort and get married. His choice fell on Maria Louisa, Princess of Parma. Her godfather was Pope Pius IX himself. Her grandmother on her father's side was a direct descendant of the last French Bourbon king, Charles X. Soon, however, dramatic development would throw a shadow upon the royal house of Bulgaria. In 1908, the Principality was still formally vassal to the Ottoman Empire. One morning, the French ambassador to Sofia received a telegram signed by King, not Prince, Ferdinand, announcing the imminent declaration of independence of Bulgaria at 11 o'clock the same day. The telegram ended with, "Long live the Tsar of Bulgaria." When the Russian emperor learned of the development, he called Ferdinand a megalomaniac. But Tsar is the only rightful title of a Bulgarian ruler if he is to maintain traditional continuity. The title, like its German equivalent Kaiser, is a translation of the Latin Caesar and was coined in medieval Bulgaria, not Russia. In 926, the Pope gave Bulgarian ruler Simeon the Great the imperial title. Since then, all Bulgarian kings bore it until the kingdom fell to the Ottoman Turks in the 14th century. Bulgaria started on the way to becoming a modern European state under King Ferdinand. Unfortunately, it was on the losing side in World War I. Ferdinand assumed responsibility for the defeat, abdicated, and went in exile. He lived out his days in the Coburg castle in Germany, also known as the birthplace of European aristocracy. To the end of his days, the king mourned the loss of Bulgaria, which he never saw again. Prince Boris Tarnowski was crowned king on the day of his father's abdication. Before he left the country for good, Ferdinand I addressed his son as "Your Royal Highness." For a quarter of a century, Tsar Boris III experienced turmoil such as no other monarch of the day had seen. It all began at birth. At his mother's insistence, he was baptized into Catholicism. And this act had tremendous repercussions across Europe. The Vatican and Austria-Hungary were pleased by the development. The nation of Bulgaria and the Russian emperor, however, forced the royal family to convert the young prince into orthodoxy. After World War I, the three largest monarchies of continental Europe, Germany, Austria-Hungary and Russia, disappeared off the map. The interwar period saw only one of the traditional monarchies survive, Great Britain. Mass transport made the world a smaller place, but certainly not a more predictable one. A flicker of light in the descending darkness. In 1930, in the St. Francis Cathedral of the Italian town of Asizi, Tsar Boris III married Giovanna, daughter of the King of Italy, Victor Emmanuel. The only time the young couple had to themselves back in Sofia was during their visits to the Varna palace. They took frequent strolls in the park before returning to the capital. They spoke French to each other. Of all of his palaces, Boris preferred Yeksinograd best. While his favorite hunting chateau was Tsarskaya Bystritsa. He proudly showed his cousin Edward VIII of Great Britain the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. To this day, the cathedral is the best example of monumental religious design on the Balkan Peninsula. Time wore on, and dark times lay ahead. During World War II, relatives would become enemies, friends turned into adversaries. Europe and the world would be at loggerheads. This devastating war put an end to the Third Bulgarian Kingdom. But Bulgarians would fight and reconquer their statehood. Bulgaria would be reborn for a new life.